Hey everyone, and welcome to a new video. If you haven't already noticed, I am not driving the Myvi right now. As a matter of fact, I am driving the brand new Mercedes S-Class, the S580e or S580e, whichever way you want to call it. So in this video, I'll be doing a brief review and commentary of the brand new S-Class, as I was presented the opportunity to drive this vehicle for the past few days right now. And this is my third day driving it, and I think I have driven it enough to the point that I can give some perspective and overview of how it feels to be driving this particular vehicle. And I would like to highlight that my opinions here are limited to that of being a driver of this car rather than a passenger. So yeah, I'll be talking more about this car from my experience driving this thing rather than being a passenger, because I've never actually sat in this thing as a passenger. So the way I'll be breaking down this video is into two major parts, which is the pros and cons of this car as a driver. But first off, a general look at this car. So I'm not going to show you around this car because I'm sure some of you might have seen it on the roads. There are plenty of these on the roads here in Malaysia already, despite how expensive they are. But there are not too many yet in comparison to the previous S-Class, as a matter of fact. From the exterior, it looks completely different compared to the previous generation S-Class. One way to describe it would be that the car looks more rounded now. Obviously it's not round, but I think they got rid of the defining lines of the car and just made it more round, ovalish to look at. I don't know, it's hard to tell, but I'm just going to put a picture of the previous generation S-Class and the current one I'm driving right now onto the screen right now, and I think you might have an idea of what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, exterior wise, looks fine for a Mercedes S-Class. They retain the usual grille design with a lot of grille lines on top of it, but nothing to be too how do I say it? Nothing too fancy, nothing too extreme, nothing too significant change, except for the fact that it looks more rounded, basically. So the interior has been overhauled completely. Instead of the usual one screen spanning across the dashboard from the driver's side to the middle, they split the screens into two, one being the main digital screen for the driver and a giant screen for the infotainment, AC controls, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's start off with the first screen, which is in front of me, which is reserved for the driver. So to start off, the screen now is a completely freestanding screen. It's not like sunken into the dashboard. There's no cover over it, like no ledge to shade it from the sun. Sunlight coming through the windshield. So design wise, it's fine. The various different styles are perfectly okay. Nothing too crazy, nothing too special. From my point of view, it's just a digital screen. But the thing about it this time around compared to the previous generation of digital screen is that since this one is standing on its own and there is no shade covering it from the sunlight coming through the windshield, sometimes the screen tends to fade out a bit because, of course, the sunlight, which is too bright, interfering with the screen's brightness, causing it to be sometimes not really pleasant to look at, to be honest. I just don't like how some parts of the screen are suddenly not in sync with the brightness of the other parts of the screen, and yeah, that's a major downside of the current generation screen. Design wise, it's fine. Like, it's a pretty clean finish, I will say that. When separating it from the main screen over here, I think that's a pretty nice design choice to make it a clean look. And pairing it with the overhauled interior design, it's fine. But this is gonna be biased, but generally speaking, I'm not that big of a fan of digital screens, no matter how good they make the design are, purely for the sake that cars just aren't good enough to have.
Sorry.
As I was saying, cars just aren't good enough to incorporate digital screens without having them without having this glare from the sunlight interfering with the brightness. So there's that. So I apologize if my review here sounds a bit too biased. But moving on to the giant main display infotainment screen over here, because it's bigger and because you need to interact with it by touching here and there on the screen to access the controls and so on and so forth, I dislike it even more. Because whenever you drive this thing in the day and a lot of sunlight is coming through the windshield, it tends to highlight all the dust specks and every single fingerprint on the screen, and I don't like it. It just looks so. It looks so. I just don't like looking at it, especially during the day, because I can see every single fingerprint, and the urge to just wipe the screen clean every now and then is so bothering. I don't know if it bothers anyone else, but I just don't like the amount of thumbprints or fingerprints that are on the screen right now. The reason why there are so many fingerprints in the first place is because they got rid of a lot of buttons, and the only remaining buttons are on this small row down here, which is used to turn the screen on and off, volume controls, mute, car system controls, and the dynamic driver selection change thing, so on. Apart from that, everything else has just been reduced into a screen. Now moving on with my review of driving this car, or from a driver's perspective, all the different dynamic modes are fine for driving. Like we have the full electric mode, the hybrid mode, sport mode, individual, and battery hold, which I'm not sure what it is for. I've never actually used that mode, but the hybrid modes and electric mode, they are fine and very good for city driving or daily driving around your home, where you're not going long distance driving, because the cabin gets super quiet, especially when you have the aircon turned down to a minimum. Right now it's all the way down to zero, it's turned off completely. You can probably hear me better compared to how I would usually sound in my vlogs when I'm recording in the Myvi instead. Granted that of course this is an S-Class, soundproofing is better compared to Myvi of course, but I think the hybrid powertrain really contributes to giving the ride sound quality, like a much better sound quality. So when you're driving around town, around the city, it can get quite peaceful, I must say. Sport mode, of course, it switches the car to rely completely on the engine for power as usual, and being an S-Class and a Mercedes as well, it performs really good. It climbs up to 200 kilometers per hour PT decently and quite easily. I can't remember what engine this car has. It's not the V12 like the previous generations had. V12, yeah, V12e. Yeah. I don't remember what engine this car is using right now, because Mercedes are moving towards all those e-performance and hybrid power electric cars, whatnot. Oh, actually there is one major feature I want to talk about, which is the safety features of the car. So to begin with, I am all for safety features in vehicles, considering that here in Malaysia our public transport system is absolutely terrible, and a lot of us have to rely on cars to get around from place to place. I'm all for it, technology improving to make driving as safe as it possibly can, because while of course we aren't able to control external factors like other cars, other drivers, developers or manufacturers can do as best as they can to improve the safety and technology of the car that a person will be driving themselves. Like, it's not perfect. Like, it can never be perfect, safety systems and whatnot, because I've been driving this car for a while now, and the one thing which has been bothering me a lot in terms of safety precautions or systems is that the emergency auto brake, it's too intrusive. It has happened too many times now, and not because that I have been driving too erratically or too close to other vehicles. No, it's just because it happens when people like walk too close to the car, like on a sidewalk, or like when I want to turn into a junction and there are people there, the car would detect those people and like emergency stop, not stop, but like bring the car to a close halt. And it happens also when motorcyclists cut closely in front of your car, and the car detects that as well. Like they think, oh no, there's a child that's falling in front of the car, I should stop. But evidently that is not the case. Props to Mercedes for making the system as safe as it is, I guess. Good on them. But yeah, other safety features otherwise, the regenerative braking in hybrid mode is pretty good. Like during that mode, I don't have to use the brake pedal that much because the car does the braking for me. It has a whole bunch of sensors and cameras around to help pinpoint the car's location on the road. And apart from that, connecting to the point where this car has a bajillion cameras, it's really easy to navigate this giant car around underground parking lots or basically closed spaces essentially. Like it clears all the blind spots where I wouldn't be able to see, considering the fact that I haven't had much time to get used to the dimensions of the car. So all those cameras really helped. I think the car is a very good super sedan from Mercedes. Some people would say otherwise, considering people view a Mercedes S-Class as a poor man's Bentley, but for those of you that can afford it, I think it's pretty good, even if you're to drive it yourself. It's a decent driver, but cornering is... I wouldn't say the cornering is the best, because like you are lugging around a lot of weight. This is a heavy car, a big car with a lot of, electric batteries, heavy batteries stored like on the rear, I believe, of the car, or the front, I can't remember where, but it's a heavy car. It's not the best for turning, and when you are driving around people, you become super aware of how the car performs, and cornering isn't the best in this car really. But when you're driving alone, of course you can just go left, right as much as you want, but when driving people around, you gotta be a bit more conscious of what's that term, I forgot. Basically the body roll of the car, yeah, that's the term. But I think that will be all for my brief review of the brand new S-Class. There's nothing much to say from a driver's perspective at least, but I think I've said my piece about this car after a few days using it, and nothing more to elaborate. So that will be all for this video. I hope you enjoyed this brief review of mine. Do leave a like if you like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.